Hello, everybody. This is Mike Thalbauer from the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation, coming to you from the Flagler Voice podcast studios here in Palm Coast. We have a very special guest with us this afternoon, and I will introduce him to you shortly. I'll be right back. Well, we're back here with you today, and I have the guest I have in the studio today. His name is Shane V, and you can spell it any way you want. One letter or a couple letters, it doesn't really matter. And Shane came to me because of Crystal that was on the air that you saw last week, I believe. And Shane is her sponsor and thought it would be a good time to have him come on and tell his story. So, Shane, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, today, and what we do, whomever comes on the podcast, we want them to feel comfortable and talk about what's important to them in the world of recovery. They can tell their story from start to finish. And of course, none of it's finished until we're finished, or where they are, what's helped them along the way, what you see that we need to do to improve helping people in the road to recovery here in the county. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what your story is.
A little bit about me. December 7th, 2017. That is my sobriety date. However, I tried for a lot of years to be able to be here. And when I mean here, I mean recovered, in a recovered state of mind, having recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Is a direct result of taking 12 steps through Alcoholics Anonymous. It has absolutely changed my life. Given me a life that I get to enjoy because I don't claim it as my own, right? I'm just part of all of this now today.
That's great. You know, hearing success stories, and we know that there's rocky roads, there's curves in the road, there's bumps in the road, depending on who you are and what you are. For some people, it's easier. For some people, it's difficult. But knowing that you've been on that road and you are where you are today, it's got to be an encouragement to those people that are out there that are watching and listening to this, that there is hope.
There's definitely hope. There's definitely hope. For me to be able to recover, I had to come to a place where I had lost all hope and I had lost any idea of how I could recover. I was presented with Alcoholics Anonymous 12 steps for a lot of years. I think I first started coming around the program about the year 2000. But I was unwilling to take these 12 steps. I'd come into meetings and hang out, and I'd read the steps that they have on the wall, and I could self interpret from my inexperience what step 1, 2, and 3 meant, you know. But to go any further than that, I figured that was for the sick people in the room, and I didn't need that. I'm going to get better. I know how to get better, and I'll be okay. And before long, I would find myself back out there drinking and doing drugs again, wondering how this happened one more time, you know. And that went on for a lot of years, a lot of years. Um, it went on for 7 years to begin with, right? I was in and out of meetings, in and out of halfway houses and detoxes, jail a couple different times for 7 years. And finally, I was beaten up pretty badly. And I had to get on this program that they have down in South Florida, West Palm Beach County, because I'm from South Florida, Fort Lauderdale. And it was called the HOT Team, Homeless Outreach Team. And I got on this program, and they put me up for 30 days in another halfway house. I had just been kicked out of one just before that because I couldn't stay sober. And somebody brought me to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. It was a different meeting than I had ever really experienced before, where it was one man, a speaker, got up there and he told his story of what he was like, what had happened, and what his life was like now. And I remember the guy that brought me to that meeting, we got there early. I didn't want to be there early, because I like things my way. However, having gotten there early, in retrospect, I know some things now that I didn't know then, right? There were some people there, regular home group members, that were able to see new people coming in because they were there all the time. So they recognized new faces. And I was one of these new faces. And this man approached me, and he had business cards, blank business cards that he had written his phone number down on. And he was passing them out to anybody that he would talk to, anybody that would listen to him. Right. And I was one of these people. And I really don't remember too much about what he had said to me, but I know how he made me feel on the inside. I felt like there was some kind of hope, and that he had cared, and that he had walked this path before, this life that I was trying to get out of. I do remember at the end of our conversation, he said, if there's ever anything I could do to help you, you give me a call. Or if you'd like to know what it is that has me happy and sober today, you call me. Right? 2 words that never went together for me, because I would get sober and I would think I was happy about it for a moment, and then that would be gone, and I'd find myself just, ugh. And the only solution I knew was to turn back to try and get high or to drink one more time, thinking I'm going to get away with it. And it never worked out. We went and sat down in this meeting, and this man that brought me there had to sit in the front row. I didn't want, again, I didn't want to sit in the front row. But at some point through this meeting, I remember I turned to that guy and I was like, oh my gosh, I think I could do this, because of the message that this man was delivering up in front. He had lived a life similar to mine, and now he was different, and I was like, wow, I think I could do this. So after that meeting, I went and found that guy with the business card, and I told him, I was like, man, I've been coming around meetings for like 7 years now, and I don't know why I can't get this. My exact words. And he looked right at me and he said, there's nothing to get here. There's things to do. And I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, well, you ever taken 12 steps? And again, that is not what I wanted to hear, but I was intrigued, so I asked him all kinds of different questions. And I'm like, how quickly do we go through these steps? And I've learned some things since then. And he said it real simple to me. He's like, if you had 12 steps to take, if you're in a burning building and you got 12 steps to take, how quickly would you take those steps to get out of that fire? I was like, wow, I never thought about it like that. So that man proceeded to take me through these 12 steps, and I woke up. I woke up to a life that I had never experienced before. But this is back in like 2009, right? And my sober date now is 2017. So obviously I didn't stick around for real long,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up picking up finally on a Friday because I wasn't consistent with my actions that this man had taught me. And I became afraid again, right? I've learned that fear can be a driver in my life, right? It drives me, right? I think all of us experience different levels of fear. Sometimes I'm afraid of what I might not get. Sometimes I'm afraid of what I might lose. Sometimes I'm afraid of what people think of me. Sometimes I'm afraid of what I think of myself. And sometimes I can be afraid of what people think of me if they knew what I was thinking. And these kind of things drove me, and I didn't know that's what was occurring, And this man had taken me through these steps and introduced me to a new relationship with, I would say, with a power greater than myself, right?
Gotcha.
It doesn't matter what you call it, and it's not even about the name. It's about tapping into this power, right? And that's what I've been able to do. So anyways, that's what that man taught me back then, but I started slipping back into fear, and I wasn't transparent, right? I wouldn't talk about the things that were going on inside of me to the level of honesty that I needed to do, right? And I found myself wanting to get high again for about 2 weeks. And I definitely didn't want to talk about that one because I've been doing well now for some time, and people are seeing me do well, and I want to maintain that, and I got this, and I'll be okay. And before I knew it, the obsession was so bad that on a Friday night, I got high again. Saturday morning came, and I was like, I can't believe I did this. But I know what to do now. I'll go back and pick up white chip, and I'll start over. But if somebody would have told me what was about to occur, I would have never believed them, right? Because Well, let me just back up here real quick and say, I know what to do now, is what I had said. Pick up a white chip, but not today. Today's Saturday. I'll pick it up on Monday because, I mean, tomorrow's Sunday. Who does it on Saturday or Sunday? I'll go back Monday. But if you'd have told me that it was going to be 9 years before Monday would come, I would have never believed it, right? And all the things that would occur within those 9 years, right? That I'd go to prison for trafficking oxycodone, right? There'd be multiple DUIs, right? I wouldn't be able to show up as a son, as a grandson, as a father to my 3 kids. I wouldn't be able to have a job, right? From 2002 to 2017, I didn't keep a job for 5 years, 5 months.
Mm.
I just was unable to maintain employment, right? Because the shine, the new, the hope of everything that I put my trust in, that I tried to fix, wore off. And eventually I found myself, just like this book of Alcoholics Anonymous that has shown me how to live calls, I would find myself restless, irritable, and discontent. And once again, I would look towards alcohol, right? Because the way I see it now, alcohol wasn't the problem, right? It was my solution to life. Life was the problem, and alcohol was my solution, right? Because it made me feel better on the inside. So I thought, right? Because that's the only thing I knew.
Mm-hmm.
So 9 years passed, and finally I was beaten up badly enough. And I was driving to the liquor store, Publix liquor store, because they had the liquor on sale that I wanted, right? And at this time, money is really tight. I can't go and buy, right, the drugs that I wanted to buy because I can't afford it. And it's so tight that at each and every red light, I'm turning the car off because I'm about to run out of gas,
Mm.
and the money that's in my pocket has got to go to this liquor that I want to buy. And I pull up to this liquor store. My sister happened to work at Publix, and she's standing out in front of the liquor store. I'm like, what is she doing there? I was like, I don't want to have a conversation with her right now because she knows how I'm living, And after some time, I would find out that she had lost her keys, right? I believe this to be one of these divine appointments in my life, where she had told me about this place where I eventually would go and get sober in Baltimore, Maryland, called the Helping Up Mission. She didn't tell me much about it because she didn't want to have the conversation with me either, right? Because this ended up being a 12-month program. She just told me to go and look at it online. And as soon as I looked it up online, I'm like, yeah, no, I don't need that. I don't need that crap. But after a few more weeks, I think it was, of trying on my own power to stay sober, and another overdose, and Narcan saving my life, while my car's blocking 3 lanes of traffic, and swearing I'm never going to do it again, right? And then I go the next day. Somebody brings me the next day to get my car out of impound. Man, I'm right back to the same spot buying the same drugs that just killed me the day before, And sometime in the next week, I had this moment, of clarity where I was like, 9 years I've been trying to come back here and nothing's changed, but the time, but the date. And I was out of ideas. I was out of ideas of how to affect a change in my life, I had to come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of the life that I was living, and that there was nothing I could do to change it. And with that, I made a phone call to my sister, and family got me a plane ticket, and I'm on my way to Baltimore, I think within the next day, and I was so broken on the inside that I remember being on the plane thinking maybe the plane will just crash because I am sick and tired of living this kind of way, and how dark it is, before the dawn, because I got up there, and I've been given a brand new life, right? I got back in touch with the sponsor, and he has taken me back through these 12 steps, all those years ago, and told me, he's like, you need to be out there in this place where you're currently at, right? Because there's like 400 guys living there at any given time. He's like, you need to be out there talking about your experience with these 12 steps. You need to be talking about the past. You need to be talking about this stuff, right? And so I haven't stopped doing that. these past 7 years and almost 4 months now, or something like that. While I was there, my entire family moved from Fort Lauderdale, all of us, up here. The place allowed me to fly down there, move my family up here, help my mom and dad, my grandmother, and everybody get up here. And since then, I stayed at that place for 14 months, and I come back down here and I got a brand new life. I've worked at the same place now for 5 years, right? I bought a house in 2020.
Mhm.
I went from having trash credit to being able to buy a house. I got a car sitting outside, you know, not a brand new car, but it's my car, right? And the reason I can have all of these things today is because I don't claim them as my own, right? They're not here for just me, right? That car has been placed in my life for me to be able to fit myself a maximum service, right? To be able to go to the work, to go to the job, so that I can perform a service, so that I'm part of the stream of life to help other people get their cars back in order, right? Because I happen to work in a body shop where I do some paint and body work. And this house, when I remember my sponsor talking to me about buying a house. Don't buy a house just because you want a house, right? Why are you buying the house, right? And at that time, it was for my kids, right? It was for the woman that was in my life at that time and her kid, and us to like move in as a family, not just so that it's mine. Because once I start claiming something as mine, that's some really selfish behavior, right? And I can still fall into that, right? I definitely can still fall into that. Um, but when I do, it feels different on the inside than it used to. I've become more sensitive to the way I feel, right? I can still fall into being uncomfortable, being angry, being fearful, right? But most of the time, I'm pretty content and pretty happy in my life. And so that being said, I can tell when I'm not doing so well on the inside, right? And I've learned to be transparent based on being gone for all those 9 years. I've learned to be transparent with those people that are in my corner, right? Those people that are walking this way of life, right? Hey, this is what's going on in my head, and this is the way I feel, right? And maybe we have some kind of perspective on it. Maybe they can help with some kind of perspective. Maybe they can't, but what they can do is they point me back in the correct direction, you know, of spiritual principles to be able to walk, because it's not about how I feel and it's not about what I think, it's about what I do. Because if my thoughts and feelings would have got me sober, they would have done that years ago, you know. It's a direct result of the actions I take, you know. And
Do you feel that part of the importance, and I hear a little bit in the back of what you're saying, that the transparency has to start with you
absolutely.
and the ability to voice that to other people. See, I'm one who believes that the more you hear, the more you understand. And even if it's just yourself talking, that goes back inside. And to get it out of your head and out of your mouth makes a big difference in your ability to do whatever you need to do, whether it's in recovery or anything else. They teach you that how do you learn to sing? Well, you sing a song and you sing it over and over again because you hear yourself doing it. Just sitting and listening is not the way that it goes. But to know that you have that those people, that support that allow you to voice what's going on in your head, to get it out. And then you can either, like you said, they either have something or they don't, but you've gotten it out, which is a big start on what's happening.
I think it's definitely a help, right? Because if not, I'm just sitting there in my own mind, right, stewing over this, trying to come up with an answer trying to come up to an answer to this problem that I can only see my perspective on, right? And my perspective, as I've learned, can be often very skewed, right? And maybe it's a problem I can't even fix right now. Maybe I need to go and do something totally different than try and fix this problem. Maybe it's really not a problem. Maybe I'm just in the valley underneath the storm, right? And I need to take some actions and climb up that mountain so that I can look down from the top of the storm and not be in that wind and the hail and the rain. It's all about taking a different action, is what
Yeah.
I've been taught. It's not about what I think or how I feel, right? Because those things change, right? But I can be consistent in my actions.
And that's the old saying, actions speak louder than words
Yeah.
sometimes. And the actions things certainly louder than your thoughts. To get that out and to get, I know I use words out loud all the time so I hear it to remind me. There's so much going on in my life that sometimes I just forget what's happening and I've got to remind myself, okay, we're going here today. And I'll voice it, not just think it. Because if I just think of it, sometimes I won't get to where I need to be. And I think that's an important part of life in general, and certainly an important part in the world of recovery.
I agree. I agree. It's interesting, right, that you bring that up because there is a part in this book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's right there in step 3 that talks about we made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood Him. But a little bit further down in that book, it talks about this prayer and it talks about we voice it without reservation, right? I'm not going to sit here and think about it. So I've become really, really adept to taking direction. You know, I may not always want to do so, but I do it anyways, to the best of my ability. But yeah, something about that voice.
So, as you've progressed in your recovery, and now it's getting to be a long term recovery, what words of wisdom would you have for somebody that you're just getting involved with, like that gentleman got involved with you in that one meeting, just by handing you that card with his phone number on it, and then being able to start that conversation? If you come across somebody that's been where you were, and you have that opportunity, what would be your best action if you want to take it at that point?
If I meet somebody that is currently in the place that I used to be, is that is that the
Yeah.
question? What's the answer for that?
Well, think about this. You are now where that man became your sponsor, but now you are someone else's or many others, I don't know, sponsors. So, how are you dealing with those people that you're now sponsoring in that respect?
I just share with them what was shared with me in my experience involving these 12 steps. You
Okay.
know, like yesterday at 4:30, you know, I'm at work and my phone rings and I don't recognize the number, but I answer the number anyways. And this guy says, "Hey, is this Shane?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's Shane. Hey, I got your number from whoever this uh, I know the name, but I got your number from this guy in Baltimore, right? Where I happen to get sober, you know, and this guy's currently living in Daytona. He's like, "I understand you're living in Daytona." I was like, "Yeah, so what's going on?" He's like, "You know, not living with my wife anymore, get kicked out of the house and I can't stop getting high, you know?" And so I just start asking some questions, you know, asking some questions, kind of like this guy did with me, you know, the sponsor did with me in the very beginning.
Yep.
How you doing? You know, what brings you here? What's this phone call about? How long you got sober today? You know, you want to do something about it? Are you able to stop on your own? These kind of questions, you know, kind of leading to, are you powerless over this? Do you still have an option? Right? Is there something you think you can do about the problem? Because maybe some people aren't as bad off as I was and they can get better. You know, I don't know. I know it took what it took for me to get there, you know, to that place where I was willing to do whatever I was told to do. I don't know if that directly answered the question, but
I think it's close enough.
okay.
I think it's close enough.
That's
I
just
mean,
coming
you
from
know,
my
you are now not only in your own personal recovery, but you are guiding people in their recovery. And it apparent that if you can get people, particularly that are gone through similar to what you've gone through, you have a step up advantage. And I'm sure you run across people that didn't go into the same depths that you did,
yeah,
or maybe
yeah.
some that were even greater than you did. But all of what you have learned along the way is able to help them. And reaching back is such an important part of recovery. You know, we use the word community service in drug court, and I don't like that. I like the words of reaching back and helping. Because when you understand and you have a desire to reach back and help, is far more important than being told you need to help. When your heart opens up to that, I want to be, I want to be helpful. What can I do? And that's what the community needs to see, and that's what the community needs to hear. That the majority of the community doesn't want to admit what's going on in our community as far as substance abuse, the intensity of it right now. Um, and they need to know that they can be part of the solution or part of the problem. And if you want to be part of the solution, you have to get a better understanding of cause and effect. And what I had to learn, even from the very beginning when I got involved in this, is that my thought process was not correct. Okay. I was still at the early stages saying, oh, yeah, it's just a choice.
Mm.
Okay. Then I had to learn that no, it wasn't just a choice. There was a reason for it. They were covering up some kind of pain, trauma in their life, medical issues, all kinds of different things that were affecting, and they didn't get what they needed to get that help. And they've ended up using a substance that they thought was going to cover the pain and help them. And shortly then thereafter, unless they woke up, they become addicted to whatever that solution was for them. And then learning what they need to do to get out of it. So what we try to do with the Drug Court Foundation is not only help people that are in our program, in our drug court program, and remove some of the burdens off of them so they can concentrate on their recovery, whichever method they're using. And we don't tell people you got to go to AA or NA or Celebrate Recovery. You got to find the right one is for you and help that grow into it. But we try to eliminate some of the burdens so they can concentrate on their recovery. And then the other aspect of what we do in our community is try to educate our community. Because again, most of the people out there don't understand what causes substance abuse. And they look at people that are addicted to drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, it doesn't really matter. They look at them as nothing but junk. And they will expound on that. I'm sure you must have heard in your time, well, you failed again, you're never going to make it. Well, if you hear that often enough, you're never going to make it. So we got to change that attitude. We got to provide the hope that you had lost and then now found a way of regaining it, to let people know there is hope out there. And if you want recovery, there's help out there. The help can't help you unless you want help. But there's help out there. And if there's something we can do, we don't do any direct treatment at the Drug Court Foundation, but we can direct people to get additional help if they need it. We can tell them where the different meetings are. Let them choose. Go and find the meeting that works for you. Go and find the community that's you're going to feel comfortable with, and do that kind of stuff. And then letting the rest of our community know that there are no boundaries to substance abuse. I don't care where you live. And we tell people, you say Narcan brought you back to life. Want the people that run our Narcan program for the Drug Court Foundation, they lost a daughter to an overdose. And they've dedicated their life to try to help people not go through what they did. Because back when that happened, they didn't know a lot about Narcan. They didn't know if it was available and those kinds of things. But they lived in a guarded, gated community. Okay? They weren't in the hood. They weren't out in the western part of the county. They were in a guarded, gated community here in Palm Coast. And that didn't stop the person that provided the drugs for that young lady to die from. So people have to understand that there are no boundaries, whether it's where you live, the color of your skin. None of that has anything to do with the world of substance abuse. It's what internally is causing you to try to cover whatever that pain is. And if we can get a better understanding of that, and we can act differently toward people that are suffering from substance abuse, we can help them. We can encourage them. We can say there is hope. And if you want help, we'll help you find it. You got to want it, because the only way you're going to succeed is if you want it and you're willing to do what you say. You need to work at it. You have to do the actions. But it's available. It is available. And I'm not saying it's our government, whether it's the county or the city's job to do it alone. We have to do it in conjunction with the general population. We all have to act together to help. There's other organizations out there that will help people. We have to work with them. Not one can do it all. We're not looking to pat ourselves on the back or have our name on the top of the letterhead. That's the way we look at it in the Drug Court Foundation. We want to be part of the solution. Whatever part that we can participate in, that's what we want to be. And I really thank you for being here, and your story has been phenomenal. And I really hope and believe that those who get to watch it will be encouraged to know there is hope. Even if you're at the bottom where you have lost it all, it can come back. So we're getting close to closing. Is there anything particular that you'd like to finish up with and let the public know, talk about, whatever?
No, hope is available. Hope
Right.
is definitely available. Like I said, I found my solution through these 12 steps, right? These 12 steps are a set of principles, spiritual in nature, which, if practiced as a way of life, had the ability to expel the obsession to use, to drink, to make the sufferer happily and usefully whole,
Yeah.
right? But a guy like me had to be convinced that my ideas didn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And it
Well,
works.
that's great. I appreciate again you being with us today, taking the time. And for those people out there, as you were talking about, um, the 12 steps are good for whatever you're going through. They give you a foundation for life. And if you're willing to learn whether, and it's even if you're not in the world of substance abuse, they're there to guide you. If you could only imagine that people, before they got into trouble, had spent time in those 12 steps, they might not have gotten into trouble to begin with. For me, I understand that, the 12 steps all came from Bible. They're all biblical in nature. And I think that's an important factor. And I tell people, whether you believe in the Bible or not, it's the best business book that's ever been written. It doesn't teach you mathematics, but it teaches you everything else you need to know to have a successful life. And AA, Celebrate Recovery, all those people have been able to take that stuff out of the Bible and put it into a place where people can come and learn and save their lives. So again, Shane, I thank you for being with us. We'll hope to have you back again someday. And thank you for what you're doing in our community.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Mike from the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation, and we'll be signing off today and hope to see you again real soon.